Welcome back to the War-Song of Davokar. Before we get into the session with the Queenseekers and the Raiders parties, we have to address the fact that one of our players is no longer at the table. This is the person who played Terran and Calvor, and if you were paying attention to the Ghost of Karahar campaign, this was who played Seldar. Now, the less said about this situation, the better, but I promise you, it's nothing very dramatic or interesting. This is not an RPG horror story. It's just somebody who decided on their own that it's time to step away from the table, and we wish them well, so the rest of us are happy to continue playing. Let's get into what that looks like. It is time for the Raiders of Weasel Clan to take down Thistlehold once and for all. They follow Odaiva, Godinia, and Goya clan as they mount the wall, dispatch what few guards remain in utter silence, and then they look down as the frightened city begins to realize their doom is upon them. Buildings are broken, fires are lit. Guardians and civilians alike are slaughtered by the barbarians, as the Weasels choose to take on the temple to Prios. They find staunch resistance there, Ambrian officers ready to command the militia, and worst of all, inside this temple, Sir Chardon Guy, an elite noble Pansar, guardian of Queen Corinthia herself, who douses himself in holy oils empowered by a single golden hair from Queen Corinthia's head. As the group fights on, things become dire. Rocco himself flees from the tougher fight to instead slaughter the civilians and take whatever loot he can, falling back into his Highwind robber days, while Scab, Suk, and Zaya go into the temple to retreat from Chardon's rage as he grabs hold of the columns, not allowing his temple to become an artifact of the enemy. He wrecks it, brings it down on their heads. All four of the Weasels will survive and appear to be victorious in the eyes of the chief of Godinia clan, Helia. The city is taken. The battle is won. Meanwhile, the Queenseekers and Indaros have their target, they have their quest, they have two ways in, and they choose the longer but stealthier path provided by Uncle Conchi. They go through a maze of sewers, break through a door designed by old barbarian clan Cadiz, once the holders of Indaros, and finally make their way through some sort of ensorcelled corridor. Bijan falls prey to some sort of curse there, but in doing so, is able to find the path forward. We don't quite know what's going on with Bijan yet, but he doesn't seem to take kindly to his friend Melchizedek giving him orders. They quietly, discreetly go past a slaughterer Gwan that could have been quite the fight, but they have much more ahead of them. After all, they're here to kill Queen Corinthia. As they make their way into the hub of 6 different pathways, Melchizedek uses Uncle Conchi's map and leads the group into the Bitter Black Speakeasy, which seems to also be Acantha's Queen spy connection. They see a few patrons of this underground bar, and while some of them are not too keen of their barbarian guests, there's one man in particular, Blasco Kilvar, a member of the Vaivod clan, yet dressed and groomed in the Ambrian fashion. He invites the barbarians to sit down with him, enjoy a game and a couple of drinks on him, and we don't know how far the crew will need to go through the Underpalace dungeon before they get to the Queen, but this is where we've left off a tense standoff in a basement speakeasy. So that's what happened in the actual session, but let's take a look behind the screen. You may have noticed that this was a lot more put together, a lot more cohesive of an experience than we've had before, and I think a lot of that has to do with having one less player at the table, no matter who that player may have been. 4 players is kind of a sweet spot, but the players that were there also mentioned that they could use just a little more direction from me. I've been trying to create a very free, player-driven experience, and sometimes that just leaves things too open. So I've started implementing quest cards. These are quick reminders for the characters of what they're supposed to be doing and the facts that they know about their given situation, while still leaving room for interpretation and for the players to leave their own notes. And of course, the players can always make their own side quests or personal quests based on their goals or new events in the story. I used 2 very different maps for the 2 different parties. For the temple, I realized that I wanted to leave things open. Maybe they wanted to attack the barracks, which was actually my first plan. Maybe they wanted to raid through the streets, or maybe they wanted to go with Clan Godinia and attack the temple. I reflected this choice on the quest card. The players got together and decided that their characters would like to assault the temple, and then I tossed out a bunch of props and a couple of markers and asked the players to draw the map for me. This worked out really well. They were able to kind of step outside of their characters' heads and draw the map from an Ambrian perspective. We had some cool stuff going on with the temple itself, and then they got to have fun making a little barricade, which I then put my minis behind. So this was really fun. I don't even think this is something you have to have like a lot of trust in longtime players with. I think if you're a pro DM or a convention DM, this could be a lot of fun to really make your players feel involved and get them a little bit of that GM feel, like they're doing something in the story and in the fight. Now, the Underpalace was very different. I sometimes love drawing out mega dungeons. I have a book just for this, but it does take time and it takes a lot of resources. I probably would have needed 3 of these big vinyl maps to fully draw out the Underpalace as it exists literally. So instead, I went with an abstract model. I drew all these different sections, and we started drawing in little lines, little tethers with a marker where the long paths and corridors would be for these individual rooms to connect. It's a bit like using dungeon tiles without the tiles. So as we go on and the players complete the dungeon, there's going to be lots of connecting lines and hallways between the big rooms and between the side rooms, which I'm very excited to reveal to the players, but we'll get to it when we get to it. There's easily 1, if not 2 more sessions of dungeon they have to go through before they get to the Queen, and we seem to be having a great time with it. And that's all for this one. Losing a player isn't the most fun ever, but kind of like your character has to go along with what the dice roll. Sometimes as a person, you have to go along with whatever life is thrown at you, and I think the 5 of us that are still playing were able to talk about the situation and move forward in a positive way, and I'm honestly more excited than ever for how this campaign is going with the people who are there. Thank you for being one of the people watching and paying attention to this story. Let me know in the comments if you have questions about anything going on in the story or behind the screen that I can highlight to better help your games, or maybe even some of the player issues that you're having. Until then, have a nat one day. Bye-bye.